Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Caw, and I am over the moon, delighted to be joined by Record Sports version of the Chuckle Brothers, Keith Jackson.
You've used that one. That's been used.
I'm running out of comedy
Yeah.
double acts. I was going to go with the two.
Coyote write your script for you.
I was going to go with the two Ronnies, but it's a bit old, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Keith, how's it going?
Full of the joys. Full of the joys. And, always benefit from your wee intros and all that.
Not bad, mate. Not bad.
It's good.
Sun's up, so.
It's wonderful to see you both. This is I think we're the best three. Don't tell Mick Gannon or Swanee or anyone, but a new week is upon us, and plenty of news in Scottish football for us to be getting on with. And Keith, I think the best place to start is Tynecastle and Derek McInnes.
Breaking news of sorts. Look, it's been quite a difficult day today because it's largely radio silence, which tells you it's almost like the conclave, isn't it? Their Hearts and Kilmarnock have clearly got much to discuss, and probably not least the fact that they play each other at Rugby Park in the final league game of the season. So I have no doubt. Look, I said yesterday that Derek McInnes will, he shouldn't just be absolutely guaranteed that he'll accept that Hearts are, he's going to have to hear what Hearts likes. I'm sure he will. I think at the end of the day, this is the right job at the right time for Derek McInnes. But what's interesting is the Jamestown analytics part in all of this, because it's becoming clear that Derek McInnes was the man that Jamestown picked 9 months ago, or in October, when, just after Hearts had sacked Stephen Naismith, after a sort of catastrophic start to the campaign. And for whatever reason, Hearts chose not to go down that route, and they went for Neil Critchley. Incredible decision. Might be something to do with the fact that Derek McInnes was under contract at Kilmarnock, and that would have involved a compensation package, which they're going to have to pay just a few months later anyway, to get him out. But yeah, I think that's interesting, and I think where it's really good news for in terms of the relationships behind the scenes. If Tony Bloom gets through the door at Hearts, and obviously he's offering just under £10 million for 29% stake in the club, Derek McInnes is going to have a big ally in Tony Bloom. If Tony Bloom's Boffins have twice now come up with Derek McInnes' name in the space of just a few short months. So that would tell you he's going to have a key ally in Tony Bloom. And it does feel like an exciting moment. Big changes on the way. And I think that, Derek McInnes will know at this stage in his career, Hearts have the potential to be the third best club in Scotland. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He managed to make Aberdeen and involve them in that argument. But I think, especially with if the door is opened and Tony Bloom is welcomed in over the threshold, Hearts are going to be in a really strong position. And Derek McInnes, they're going to have an excellent manager.
So, if Jamestown Analytics selected Derek McInnes 9 months ago, it kind of begs the question, why didn't they go for him 9 months ago?
Well, Jackotown Analytics discovered that was the best solution for the problem back then. My computer isn't that super. So you would have thought it does make sense that, of course it makes sense. It was the obvious one. But I can only guess that because of contractual situations or whatever else, they chose to go a different path. I'm sure that Critchley's name must have been high up on the programming or the algorithms as well, and maybe it was just an easier fit, and it wouldn't have involved having to pay a compensation fee. But that's kind of short-sighted, because what they've had to do now is sack Critchley, pay him up to go, and now pay the money to Kilmarnock for a compensation package. So sort of false economics there, isn't it?
Go on, Scott, sorry.
I'm just going to say the key thing here, and Jacko's touched on it, is I think it would take a lot to get Derek McInnes away from Kilmarnock. And we know Kelly are a massive club, but he's got such a good relationship there with the owners, Billy Bowie. he's got autonomy at the club where he's in charge of pretty much everything. Really settled there. Obviously, we know it's been a disappointing season, even though they're finishing it really strongly. And we all know about the mitigating factors this season. But the key thing is Tony Bloom's involvement and almost the promise of some serious funds to go and strengthen the squad at Hearts. I mean, listen, Hearts are an attractive proposition anyway. Derek McInnes is more about the size of the club, obviously. Jacko is arguably the third biggest in the country, loads of potential there. But the fact that, as Jacko says, to have Tony Bloom's backing as the guy that they've chosen, but also the potential for this investment to go and really try and strengthen the squad, bring quality into Tynecastle, and let's be honest, go and try and make a real impact next season at the top end of the table. I think at this stage in his career, given where Derek McInnes is at Killie, he needs something to spark him, just to float his boat a wee bit. And I think, given everything that we've kind of heard, I think this Hearts opportunity might just do that for him.
The thing is,
he might even look at Rangers and fancy second.
He might well.
But
by the way, that's what he is. He's Dale the Disruptor, isn't he? Always has been. During his time at Aberdeen, at Kilmarnock, I think I wrote a statistic a while ago, a few weeks ago. He's got more wins against Celtic than any non-Rangers manager, if you know what I mean by that. It was Kilmarnock who put Celtic out of the League Cup last season. That's the only trophy that Brendan Rodgers hasn't collected in his 2 stints in charge. So, yep, he will, look, first things first, establish Hearts as a top 6, club, a genuine force again. That'd be the first objective. But, he will 100% believe that he can have a wrestle with Celtic and Rangers next season. So, I think if he was honest, if Derek was on here just now, he'd probably say he's kind of always cherished the sort of Hearts, or coveted the Hearts job. I think he's always looked at that as possibly would give him the credentials to go one step further than he was able to do during his 8 years at Pittodrie. So, yeah, you would imagine, all things going well, that Hearts should be able to get this over the line. I mean, I did mention last night, Daniel, that, he won't be a pushover. He's not going to be a walkover. He'll need to like what he's hearing. He'll need to be convinced, because, he showed when Dave King tried to shift the goalposts on him at the 11th hour when he was on the verge of being the Rangers manager. He chose to walk away from that. As I've said previously, he didn't turn Rangers down. He turned Dave King down. But he was prepared to do it, and that tells you a lot about his strength of character. On this occasion, I think the kind of news that Tony Bloom's algorithms have now come up with his name twice, I think that helps sweeten the deal in terms of what he's going into. I would expect this. I would expect this to get done. I wonder about the timing. I wonder if Derek McInnes, for example, wants to take some of his backroom team from Kilmarnock. Is Billy Bowie going to allow this to happen now? Just days away from Hearts coming down to Rugby Park. I don't know. So that's all to be ironed out. It's probably why there's so much secrecy and silence around the whole thing. But you would expect over the course of the next 24 hours, everything would become a lot more clear. Maybe even sooner than that.
You think that game, the game against Kilmarnock, matters that much, Jacko? I mean,
I just wonder what the environment feels like, Scott. How what the Kilmarnock fans, how the Kilmarnock fans would treat it. I mean, I would imagine they might make it quite a hostile environment. It might even just be awkward for Derek McInnes, who's been at there for 3 years now, to walk into the same stadium and the first weekend that he leaves Kilmarnock, walk into the same stadium but turn right instead of turn left and go to the away dressing room, the away dugout. It's got a kind of weird feel to it, and maybe not. Maybe you're right, Scott. Maybe Billy Bowie won't care about it. Maybe Derek McInnes won't care about it. But you would certainly say it's one of those sort of could only happen in Scottish football sort of things, isn't it? That because whatever way you look at it, it's where are we now? Monday night. Hearts' next game's on Wednesday night. I think it's St Johnstone they've got. Time is of the essence. If that was going to be his managerial debut in the Hearts dugout, there's not a lot of time between now and then. So it could well be that Liam Fox takes that game, and then that would present this situation where Derek McInnes could walk back into Rugby Park just wearing a different manager's jacket.
I've said a couple of times on the show that I think he has. I actually said I think he's almost too obvious a pick. He's that suited, and I think he will. If he does take the job, I think he will be a very successful Hearts manager. However, there's a lot of some pushback from fans, so don't shoot the messenger. But let's hear a couple of. Mark says, honestly, don't get Hearts wanting another consistent relegation-threatened manager. Surely there must be better options for their future given their financial situation.
See, Mark's a good guy, and he's a frequent commenter on this show, but that's a silly thing to say.
Aye. He's not a consistent threatened relegation.
No, he's had a bad season at Kilmarnock, having taken them into Europe, and he consistently finished in second and third positions with Aberdeen. So that's that, and which is exactly why the data will have pinpointed him as the man best equipped to carry out this job. Yeah.
Francis Williams says, one question for the Hearts board: why the Kelly manager? He's no better in results this season than the man you sacked. Had a purple patch at Aberdeen. Then, for God's sake, show a bit of ambition and get someone who will improve the club, someone not on the management roundabout. And just finally, Jim, who I believe is a Kelly fan, says, Derek obviously thinks his time is up at Kelly. Just go, Derek. Let Kelly get someone who gets us playing football again instead of a big punt up the pitch. It's been boring all season and clueless tactics at times. Don't be taking Stuart Finlay and Danny Armstrong with you. Just go so we can get a more attacking manager in now. Goodbye. So Jim seems to be coping quite well with it.
Listen, Kilmarnock fans have had a brilliant time under Derek McInnes. They're obviously, and this is what I'm saying, this is why the atmosphere might get a bit tasty at the weekend if that is the circumstances. They've had a great time. They've got into Europe. I don't think they would have imagined that previously. No. They had a brilliant time under Steve Clarke, and it just goes to show that Billy Bowie, more often than not, gets the big calls right. So, I'm sure that he'll have an idea in his head for what the replacement for Derek McInnes looks like. And, going on his track record, there could probably be more better times ahead for Kilmarnock. This has been a difficult slog of a season, but mainly because it started with a European campaign and a squad which just probably wasn't equipped to play Thursday, Sunday. And it took a heavy toll on them. But you've seen, we did say before, when the league was splitting into the top and bottom six, I said Kilmarnock will be nowhere near the issues at the bottom of the table. They'll find their stride and head for the line. They'll make a dash towards the line, and they've done that, and they've done it comfortably.
I think I think it'll also be interesting, Jacko, how this impacts the Lauren Shanklin situation at Hearts.
Yep, I think that's interesting, Scott.
Because, he's worked with Derek McInnes before. He's very young at Aberdeen, but I know he really rates him and likes him. I know Derek obviously rates Shanklin highly as well. Shanklin's back among the goals again. Surprise, surprise, now that he's actually playing centre forward. He scored 2 goals in each of his last 2 games. We all know the contract's running out. I think most people kind of accepted or expected that he would move on in the summer. There has been some kind of murmurings the last week or so that there might be more negotiations. Maybe that's not a fait accompli. But I think if McInnes goes there, thinking about how Derek will be feeling about going in there, I think he'd want Lauren Shanklin there if possible. And if a deal can be done, be pretty sure he'd want him to stay. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops as well.
I would imagine, Scott, that's a major plank of the current conversations behind the scenes. I would think that Derek McInnes will be pushing hard for that. If Tony Bloom's about to invest a significant sum of money into the football club, then use some of it to keep your striker and your talismanic skipper. Absolutely all day long, Derek McInnes will want to keep Lauren Shanklin. And I don't think the ship's sailed just yet. So it could be really interesting. It could be a sort of sliding doors moment. for Shankland and for Hearts.
Just before we move on from this subject, guys, you mentioned, Keith, the potential McInnes replacement at Rugby Park. Mark asks if Stephen Naismith will be the next Kilmarnock manager, and our good pal Gianni has chimed in saying he was talking to Paul Di Giacomo yesterday. It's a done deal with Naismith. So there you go. There's a Hotline Live exclusive for everyone.
Gianni. Deary me. Do you know, I saw him in the car park at our local supermarket earlier on today. He was out delivering pizzas. And he got a £3 tip. So he's having a good day. And now he's went and spoiled it all.
Congratulations, Gianni. Elsewhere, guys, Leon Balogun, the Rangers defender, he's been talking today. His contract is up at Rangers, I guess, after this week. He seems to be left a little bit in the dark about whether or not he'll be at Rangers next season. Before we actually get stuck into this, should we just hear a little bit of what Balogun had to say?
Why not, Daniel?
Why not? Here's what he had to say earlier today.
Leon, there's obviously a lot of change coming over the summer. We're not quite sure what's happening with the squad. And as you look ahead to midweek and potentially this being your last game here, what are your emotions heading into that game?
I try not to think about it too much. I'm quite relaxed, to be honest, but maybe that's just who I am. I can be very, very emotional, but I will keep that for the moment where I have certainty, which I don't have at the moment. So.
Sure, you are still hoping that perhaps there could be a place here for you next year?
Written in the stars, I'll trust the wingman up store and submit for I'll be on the grass.
Yeah. But even at 37, you've shown this season that you can still be, an effective player for this team.
I think so. I mean, without trying to sound arrogant, but age is nothing but a number. I've looked after myself throughout my whole career pretty well, I'd like to think, which is the reason why I can still perform at this level. I would feel that I start to really struggle. I would admit it, but I absolutely do not feel that way. Felt even at times this season and even last season, I trained more than ever, because I remember when I was around 22, 23, and I played with some senior players. There was only one, I think, Michael Tarnat, you might remember. I think he was 37 at the time. That was my first year as a pro. He was managed here and there, and all the other ones around 29, 30, 31, 30, they were all managed. And I was always saying to my best friend back then, I can't wait for them days, you don't have to do the full training week, but for me, apparently, yeah. Times have changed, but I've adapted. And long may it continue. Just have to do what I can on the pitch and off the pitch to keep my fitness. And I think I've found my recipe to do that.
There's been quite a strong response from fans, guys, on Balogun. Let me throw a few at you before we talk about it. Rangers ADOK says, I defo give Balogun another year. Kind of get rid of everyone this summer. We need some experience with a high turnover of players likely. I'd also get Butland back in. Mark says, give Leon a 1 year, cheap wage, use him as a sub to play in the changing room. He's a winner. That's why Michael Beale took him to Queen's Park. He's a good character. Singing the Blues insists he's the best centre-back in Scotland. Davey says, it says everything about Rangers when their best defender is 37. And Maestro simply says, bring back Davy Weir. So, it's kind of up in the air, Keith, but he's still very popular, regardless of his age.
Everything's up in the air, and that is the problem that Rangers have got, and it's why Barry Ferguson has now repeated, what he said in terms of decisions need to get made, action needs to be taken. And I strongly believe that we'll have a much clearer picture for what the future's about to look like for Rangers by the end of this week, because people are going on holidays. The league finishes at the weekend. Obviously, it's not crept up by surprise. Rangers are well aware of the situation that they're in, and that it's far, far, far from ideal. So I think the sort of decisions around the manager and around players, I think all this has to come to the surface over the course of the next few days. And I think by the end of this week, I think we'll have a much clearer picture of the sort of direction of travel. As for Balogun, no matter who's coming in, he's a guy that you want to keep. He's an absolute warrior. He's absolutely the type of character that Rangers require. just even the fact that he was on an operating table and then 8 days later he's wearing a face mask and playing in an Old Firm game. It tells you everything about the guy. Now, is he a guy that you could rely on to play 50 games in a season? Of course he isn't. But he's certainly a guy that I would want to keep around if I was in charge of Rangers next season. You look at the likes of Robin Propper, for example. Balogun's by far and away a better central defender. More robust and strong, and more ideally suited to the Scottish game. I think if a new manager was in place, that would be one of the first things you would do. You'd look to get Balogun sorted out on a new deal. And I think as well that Balogun has really flourished. I think he enjoys the current setup with Barry Ferguson and his staff. Because Balogun is one of these guys that is really bought into Rangers, lock, stock and barrel. And we've been talking about the culture at Celtic. It doesn't really exist so much at Rangers, but Balogun is one of these guys that really does get it. And I think he's thoroughly enjoyed working with Barry Ferguson and the coaching staff. So I'd put it this way, if Barry Ferguson was to get the job, then I'd be surprised if he let Liam Balogun go anywhere, because he is a guy that I think would be really a real good voice to have. Even if he can't play every game, he'd be one of these characters that you would want around your training ground and around your squad.
Scott, David says Balogun is unquestionably our best defender, and by some distance, the fact he's pushing 40 is a shocking indictment on the recent recruitment within the club. I mean, I would probably go along with David in the sense that I do think he probably is Rangers' best defender still.
I think it's fair comment, Daniel. I agree with everything that Jacko's just said there. I mean, I think he's actually... people, maybe up until a few months ago, would obviously say John Souttar was the best defender at Rangers, but I think John Souttar's had a few poor games recently as well. Hasn't kind of covered himself in glory, whereas Balogun... Look, I think with Rangers, if there's one defender, if you need a defender you can rely on for a big game in Europe or against Celtic or a final or whatever, I think Balogun's the guy you invariably turn to, and managers have invariably turned to him. At 37, he said himself, still in really good nick. I thought he was arguably the man of the match in the recent Old Firm game at Ibrox when he came back. I think it's a no-brainer to give him another year for all the reasons that Keith talked about, but probably the most important one that he touched on was it's his character and his personality and his leadership qualities. Jacko's talking about culture there at a club. I've spoken to people at Finn Auchenhowie. Balogun's a guy, the type of guy that will get into the laundry and get into the kitchen and speak to the staff. He cares about people. He cares about how they're getting on. He wants them to be happy. He loves it at Rangers. He's taken on more of a leadership role. I think he's a lot more vocal since he came back to the club. So, as I say, when you look at the defenders they've got and you look at the rebuild that's going to happen over the summer, you want as many of the guys, the kind of cast iron guys you can rely on, and I think Balogun's definitely one of them. So again, I'd be amazed if he didn't get another year. And as I say, that's not to say he'll play every game next season. Of course he won't. He'll not be first. You'd like to think he won't be first choice centre back. No, you'd like to think the recruitment will be such in the summer that he's maybe third or fourth choice centre back. But as I say, if you want to rely on somebody or need somebody to come in and do a job, then he's proved he's more than capable and a really good guy to have at the club.
He was meant to be when he came back to Rangers, Scott. He was meant to be third or fourth choice, and that's the thing about Balogun, that time after time he proves to be more reliable than the guys that are supposed to be further up the pecking order, and that's another reason why you would want to keep him around. And you can see from the teams that Barry Ferguson has picked over this period, whenever Balogun has been available to play, he plays. And Balogun has put his body on the line. I remember when Rangers were going away to Fenerbahce. If you recall, he was injured at that point, but put his hand up to play in Istanbul, I'm pretty sure. He's just one of these guys. He's the kind of guy that you would want beside you in the trenches, and there's not very many of them that you would that rule would apply to in the Rangers squad in general. So yeah, for me, it's a no-brainer. Yes, he's getting older. Time waits for no man, etc., etc. But David Weir's a great example of, you know, a guy who played that same position, you know, well in his 40s, wasn't he, Scott?
41, I think, wasn't he?
And he was captain in the club and all that. So yeah, for me, that's an issue that I think can be easily enough resolved. I think Balogun wants to stay, which is half the battle as well. But again, it does come down to Rangers have left it all so late that, you know, things are right up in the air right now, which is why there needs to be some sort of clarity provided between now and the end of this week before people go away on their holidays.
Yeah.
Just on Balogun in a playing sense, the thing about him is he's still quick.
Yeah, he's still rapid, Scott.
He's quicker than his recovery pace. Doesn't he seem to have waned at all? I think he proved that in the Old Firm game. Getting a couple of races with Maeda and didn't get outpaced. So honestly, it should be a no-brainer. But as Jacko says, I mean, everything's so up in the air. Depends who the manager is. It's okay us saying this. If the new manager comes in and looks at the squad, just thinks, nah, I'm not a 37-year-old centre back. I'll go and get my own guys, or I'll work with Suter, or I'll work with Proper. You just don't know. But I think the sensible decision would be to keep him around for another year at least.
I don't know how much work you need to do with Robin Proper to make him as good as Leon Balogun, Scott. That's even at 30, 37.
You know, Marzuno actually sums it up quite well. I think he says Proper or Balogun. I know who I'd rather see on the team sheet for a derby. I think that, without being harsh to Robin Proper, just sums it up. Yeah. Time is getting away from us, guys, but you know I like to check in on the latest goings on in the Rangers search for a new manager. I like showing you the odds. I know, Keith, you don't put much stock in it. Steven Gerrard is still the out-and-out favourite. And Scott, I read today with interest your piece on Ancelotti Jr., who has been linked with Rangers. He's the latest name. You spoke to, was it Tam Courts?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard obviously to find somebody that's worked with David Ancelotti or knows him, but Tam Courts is a bit of an anomaly. But when Tam Courts was at Dundee United as manager, he was wanting to do his UEFA Pro licence, obviously, but just with the timing of it, he couldn't get into the Scottish FA, so he had to look elsewhere and ended up going to Wales with the Welsh FA, and they had some decent names on the course, and one of them was David Ancelotti, and Tam got to know him really well. It was over a kind of 18-month period. I know the two of them are still in contact and have kept in touch. So, he's really he's a big fan of him as a coach. Thinks he's got the big questions for him. What I was interested in. Does a guy like this deserve the? It's okay working at Real Madrid and working at PSG, Bayern Munich as a coach, but has he got the character and the personality to come in at Rangers and be the number one with all the first managerial job, with all the pressure that's going to come here? Listen, he might be biased, obviously he knows him, but he's adamant that he does have those qualities, those attributes. And as I say, it's a bit of a left field name, but I do think there might be something in it. I think he probably has a name that Kevin Thelwell and others have looked at. No doubt they'll be considering and maybe even speaking to various others, but that's an interesting one. And certainly with that name, Ancelotti, you almost have a kind of natural gravitas, don't you? But it'd still be a massive job for him getting in for his first managerial gig, away from his dad, obviously, getting into the pressure pot that is the Old Firm in Glasgow.
Mm-hmm. Keith, Singing the Blues, says there's more chance of me getting the gig than Carlo's boy. What do you make of that?
I find it highly unlikely, but I keep saying it. You rule nothing out with Rangers because they do make decisions which, on the face of them, have been unlikely for a while now. The name is great. Ancelotti's, a superb name, and by the way, if he's got any difficulties, he's got a good contact. He can pick up the phone to discuss how best to handle awkward situations. But I agree with Scott. to come from nowhere, well, I'd say come from nowhere, that's a ridiculous thing to say given where he's been. But to be kind of shoehorned into the job at Ibrox, into this environment with no real knowledge or grounding in Scottish football for his first big gig, his first job, striking out on his own, I would mark it in the highly unlikely box.
I think that's. I mean, look, some of the comments coming in. Mark says he wants Gareth Southgate. Your loyal Muppet says not good enough. Need more experience. Sick of hearing about no hopers. But see, just to go back to the runners and riders, I just don't get the Gerrard thing, Scott. I don't get why he'd want to go back. I don't get why Rangers would want to go back to him. I just don't see it. I know he won the title, but it was 1 trophy in 10, wasn't it? I don't know.
I disagree. Yeah, I think Gerrard still ticks a lot of boxes. I mean, it's hard. No, it's hard to get somebody that's going to tick every box, because if that was the case, they'd go and get the best managers in Europe. So every manager they get, there's going to be arguments for and against. I keep saying, when they went for Philippe Clement, he ticked a lot of boxes. He was a winner. He was seen as a big character. He went into Genk and won the league, then carried on 2 seasons of trot with Bruges, really highly rated. But it didn't work out. So it's a really difficult decision, a massive decision. And who knows, you're looking at that list. I mean, who knows if any of them will even be involved in the process, if any of them's got a chance. But I definitely think Gerrard ticks a lot of boxes. He's out of work. He knows Rangers. I don't think going up against Brendan Rodgers would faze him. But as you say, that a lot of fans will probably still ask the question, well, right, okay, won the title, but there's a lot of disappointments along the way as well. Did build a good team, Steven Gerrard. I know it was a 3-year period, but you look at the players and look at that team compared to what it looks like now. I think it's totally different. So I'm not surprised he's high up in the betting and he's stayed there.
Keith, some invaluable advice from Gianni. He says, never get back with your ex, Daniel. Listen, I think that's golden advice, Keith.
Well, especially when there's major income tax implications, which there certainly would be for Steven Gerrard. And I think because of that, financially, I'd be very, very, very surprised. I mean, you're talking a humongous fortune would be owed to the taxman. And I just don't know if that would be viable right now. Certainly, I don't think Rangers could compensate him for the money that he would be losing if those circumstances were to prevail. Again, he's not one that I expect to see in the Rangers hot seat next season.
There's plenty of comments coming in saying that Gerrard, as you can see, would be a popular choice. I mean, what do I know? But Gerrard without Beale, it just doesn't float my boat, for want of a better phrase.
I don't think you could bring Beale back. I don't think that would
Now, if there's any league in the world that could do something like that, it's Scottish football. That's peak Scottish football. Beale and Gerrard back next season. Actually, that would be fun. That would be funny, though, wouldn't it, Keith?
Yeah, I don't know what more you want me to say on the matter, Daniel. As far as I'm concerned, it's not going to be happening. So, I don't think he's a genuine candidate. I might be entirely wrong, because I've heard plenty of people say it. People that claim to be in the know have said and are adamant, actually, that Gerrard has been spoken to, is in the mix. There's 75 million reasons why I don't think it'll happen.
Aye, that's fair enough. Time is getting away from us, guys. Another story that has been very popular on Record Sports website today, online, is to do with Celtic's title party, which is due to take place in the Trongate this Saturday. And Keith, it clashes on the same day as the Orange Walk. I'm sure that won't cause any problems at all. I'm sure.
What could possibly go wrong, Daniel?
I tell you what, I'm not doing this weekend. I'm not taking the missus out for a nice Saturday lunch in the city centre, that's an absolute given. Yeah, there's the potential there for that to be a really powder keg situation. I don't think Police Scotland will be delighted about it. It astonishes me that they've got themselves into this situation. I mean, was somebody not saying, Daniel, that it's not even just two things happening in the city centre. It's literally 500 yards away from each other at one point.
So, aye. Really close to each other now.
Well, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster, doesn't it? So,
Hoopsaholic says Glasgow City Council at its best, which I think
this doesn't bode well at all. And you hope that nothing happens that sort of further tarnishes the name of Scottish football, because we can well do without it. That doesn't paint a particularly pretty picture, that one. As I said, I would go nowhere near the city centre. Wild horses couldn't drag you there. If, under these circumstances, I fear it's not going to be a particularly great look.
Davey in the comment section says, title party in town is fair, same as the walk each year is fair. Hope both pass peacefully and all enjoy their day. I do like Davey's optimism, Scott, but it doesn't seem like the best planning.
I think the Daily Record should just send Jacko there and start just to do a live report. I think we need our main man there.
Live blog it.
Live blog the title party. No, just to add to the controversy. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure Jack will be welcomed on both sides, to be honest. So
I think Scott, I'll be somewhere in some leafy south side suburb on Saturday and Sunday. I will stay the hell out of Dodge.
If there's one man that can unite the divide,
that would do it.
Exactly. That could be the answer. That could be the solution. Bring everybody together.
That could be like a modern day Kofi Annan. Just a self-sacrificial one.
Well, you can see that live blog on Saturday, Keith's live blog between the two.
No, you won't. I guarantee you that won't happen. No chance of Steven Gerrard getting the job at Rangers.
Before we finish, guys, I like to check in on Serie A. We've talked a lot in the show this season about the Scottish contingent. And Keith, last night, Napoli had a little hiccup, drew 2-2 in their title race with Inter Milan, drew with Genoa, dropped points at home. They're now 1 point clear of Inter Milan with 2 games to go. And we've mentioned before, if they draw on points, it goes to a one-off cup final, which would just be incredible. But it'd be great to see the Scots win the title, wouldn't it?
It'd be an amazing climax to the season if it did go to that one-game shootout, wouldn't it? But I'd just keep my fingers crossed for Napoli. I think they were quite nervous last night. I think you could see it. McTominay, I think, set up the 2 goals, played an assist for both. Massive player. Billy Gilmour I think he came on after about 10 minutes off the bench. I thought he looked really good in the middle of the pitch, but they just looked a little bit fragile, a little bit nervous, and you can perfectly well understand that. There'll be pandemonium all around them in Naples at this minute in time. You know what that city's like, how much the fans, it's a one-club city as well. They're crying out for this. They want it so badly. I like to think that they just about get over the finishing line. It would be brilliant for our guys, for Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmour to be celebrating a Scudetto in their first season in Italy. It's unreal. It's what dreams are made of. And I'd love to see it happen for them. But how you negotiate this final kind of stretch once the finishing line's right there staring you right in the eye, that can be a test of character, a test of bottle. I don't think the 2 Scottish boys will be found wanting in those departments. So let's hope the Tartanaccio can get them through it and get their hands on the trophy. It would be an incredible way. I mean, that's the first season in Italian football. To end it up with a Serie A title would be incredible.
And it would be incredible generally, Scott. I mean, they've got 1 title in, I think it's 33 years, Napoli. But to beat this Inter Milan team to it, who are in the Champions League final, second Champions League final in 3 seasons, that would be some feat if they can pull this off.
Yeah, it would. And for these players, I mean, it would secure godlike status. No, maybe not in Maradona's category, obviously, for back in the day. But as you say, the titles at Napoli have been so rare. For them to be part of that, as Jack was saying, I'm sure it'll be absolute chaos even now or throughout this season. But if they could actually go and finish the job, Keith's right. I mean, last night felt like the first wobble. They'd looked pretty steady in the run-in. Last night against Genoa, it did feel like the first kind of wobble. Inter obviously get a bit between their teeth now. No, Champions League final place secured. What a double it would be for them, especially if it came down to that last kind of one-off game. But just as Jacko said, it'd be brilliant for the two Scottish boys. Even Billy Gilmour, I know McTominay's grabbed all the headlines, quite rightly so, for the goals and assists, and he's been a massive player. He's an absolute hero over there already. And people have said, Billy Gilmour maybe not played as much. I know he came on early in the game last night, but just to be part of that squad, get a title medal under his belt, first year in Italy, going abroad, different league, really hard adjusting. I think even for Gilmour, just to be part of that, who knows what next season brings or what his future might look like. But for the two of them to be part of a title-winning Napoli team would just be incredible.
Could you imagine the scenes if they do it, if they can get over the line and get this thing won? It'll be absolute pandemonium, and they'll be right in the thick of it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant story.
Fingers crossed for them. Just before we finally wrap up, guys, a great comment here from Rebel, who says, "This is a great vlog. Think it should run the full hour. Pay the guys more, Keith."
Right, Jack. Our wages.
Keith,
What's
if
that,
you
Scott?
could sort that for us, that'd be great.
Right, Jack. You need to sort the wages out and get the wages up.
Oh, listen here. Daniel's the man that lists the trophies and all that. He's the guy that's responsible. He's in charge of this operation, Scott. Be John Terry. Get John Terry to sign your checks.
Everyone at home knows who's the.
You need to sort it out, Daniel.
Aye, okay. I'll have a word. I'll have some stern words with the paymasters. I think that brings to the end on that note of Monday's Record
I think that does bring you to the end, Daniel.
I think the end's been in the offing for a while. But anyway, that brings to the end of Monday's show. Thank you so much for all of the comments. We really appreciate it. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. If you want to get involved in the conversation, we hope to see you then. Scott, Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching at home. Cheers.